Ding-a-ling-a-ling, the lunchtime bell rings again. School is back in after summer and the grades are here for Croft Weekend.
Hello and welcome back to the British Touring Car Podcast. And yes, we are taking through the grades and predictions from this weekend at Croft. Russ, of course, joins me once again. And there weren't really any standout performers this weekend, were there?
No, that's the end of the podcast. Thanks all for coming. It's once again, that is basically the season is in a nutshell. It's a little bit predictable and it's not particularly exciting. However, we'll try and make it a little more exciting as we go through the grades. Let's kick off things without any further ado with the championship leader Ash Sutton, and he for the weekend scores a B.
B for butchered up the last race on his own. Basically, he would have scored higher if it weren't for that incident in race 3. That obviously means his third non-score of the season? Second non-score of the season. Third non-score, yes, of course. And it could be the reason that he might not take the championship home at the end of the year. It's a silly mistake in my mind, anyway, and he should be doing better.
It's hard to disagree. Camish next up, he also gets a B. Stuck it on pole, took a race win. In your mental and crazy opinion, still keeps him in the championship hunt. For me, it's done, but hey, what's a bit of life without variety and controversial decisions? But yeah, good weekend for Camish. In my opinion, it's come 3 weekends too late.
Yeah, that is a possibility. Rowbottom, his teammate, having another really solid weekend and keeping up with Camish and Sutton this weekend for the most part. Also takes home a B. Certainly an upturn in form for him.
Absolutely. Sam Osborne, the final of the Napa boys, he gets a C. Had a pretty good weekend, to be fair to him, but didn't win the Jack Series from a position where he probably should have done. But did do well. Did do well to score points in 2 of the races, and was fighting more at the sharp end, which is good to see for him.
Yeah, very much so. Moving on to the Hyundais then, and Ingram taking home another B. I think we just fill in the rest of his section until we get to the end.
Yeah,
with B's,
where he wins
it's
it.
Just going to be completely consistent.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the season, yeah, as you say, when he wins it, give him an A star. But consistency is what brings you those points, and that's what he's done just again.
C is for Chilton, pretty much what he's achieved all season. He's there or thereabouts on the cusp of points, but there's always a mistake or a technical glitch or a problem not too far away for Tom this season. It hasn't been a particularly standout year for him so far, but he's doing okay. He's chugging away, he's getting points, and he's getting a C here.
Yeah, certainly. Pearson disappointing this weekend, this time out, filled with a few incidents along the way, gets a D. Just quite disappointing now. I really need to see some consistency from him.
Talking disappointing, Nick Halstead up next. He also gets a D. Spun it on his own in qualifying, horrifically off the pace, generally speaking. Did do okay in the Jack Sears by finishing races, which is what you need to do. However, race 3 for me was the really difficult one. I know he was on the poor tyre, but to have DeLyon come out behind you, having served his pit stop, and still catch and pass you, there just doesn't seem to be any pace with Halstead when it comes to the races. I don't know if it's to do with the car, the driver, or a little bit of both, but it's certainly not being particularly inspiring at the minute.
No, not at all. Turkington then takes home a B this weekend. Good, consistent results, and then taking that win in race 3 is exactly what he needs just to keep him in touch in the championship. Although you might not think so.
I think so. No, I think Turkington's still in this championship fight.
Okay. He's taken home a B, which is more than can be said for Jake Hill.
Yes, not a good weekend for Hill. Managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. He is given a D for the weekend. The mistakes we're not used to seeing him make, mistakes that he might ultimately come to regret at the end of the season, but 2 spins on your own and you're going to be getting a low grade for the weekend. And the same could be said for Adam Morgan, who it hasn't really happened for this season. He also gets a D, another weekend to forget for Morgan in his debut year for WSR. I think he'll already have his eyes set a little bit on next year.
Yeah, Jelly, on the other hand, a slight upturn in form for his 250th appearance in the touring cars, taking home a C this weekend. Seemed to keep on fairly good pace with Hill and Turkington, and if it weren't for a mad Ash Sutton crashing into the back of him in race 3, then he may have well done just as well in that final race as well.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda for Rory Butcher, who gets a D. A little bit unlucky that the red flag catches him out in qualifying, although he'd left it very late on to set a decent time anyway. Difficult to salvage a weekend from then, and then a mistake with the false start in race number 2. Yes, did do well in race number 3 to come back through the field, but honestly, that was the least he could do after a particularly poor weekend and a not particularly good standout season. It's a D for the man from Scotland.
Yeah, slightly better for Collard, getting a C this weekend. He unfortunate to have an oil leak going into the start of race 3, but was certainly the better performing of the 3 Toyota drivers in rounds or race 1 and 2.
You've twisted my arm into giving Gamble a C. I think it's D, but you think it's a C because he fought back in one of the races. But yeah, it's not happened for Gamble either. Cut and paste most of what I said about Butcher.
The only reason I've tried to twist your arm on this one slightly is that the reason that he didn't finish race 1 and race 2 may not have been his fault.
Yeah,
But
no,
that fight
agreed.
back of 15 places is good to see.
Yeah, Josh Cook, good weekend for him. Arguably one of his best of the season. It's another B for him. Got himself on the podium. The car looks of an upturn in form. We discussed this on the review podcast about the importance that Steve Plowman has potentially made to the team.
Steve Plowman?
No, it's not Steve Plowman, is it? It's been a long day. We're recording this late.
Oh dear. Bob Plowman.
Yes.
Bob Plowman? Yes.
I don't know. I've now got no confidence at all. So we can see, is it not Barry? Oh, God.
Yes, it might be Barry.
Plowman. The difference Plowman is making.
Plowman.
Mr. Plowman is making to the team. God, we are so bad at this. Anyway, you've seen the difference that Plowman is making to the team. And yeah, see if that continues for weekends to come. And Moffat also did pretty well in quali, did pretty well in the 3 races as well. He gets a B2. Would you like to talk us about Edwards, her return triumphant?
Yeah, so we've given her a C this weekend. An upturn in fortunes, albeit race 1 was a little fraught with mechanical niggles or technical issues. But apart from that, she raced okay. She was on the back of some groups battling, and I think it's just the right time for her to return to that team as their upturn in fortunes happens.
Yeah, she's certainly seen more on the pace this weekend and was unlucky at times. I think to not be further at the points. And just for any sort of doubt, it's Barry Plowman. We are idiots.
We got there in the end.
To quote Charles Leclerc, I am stupid. Right. Moving on to Dan Lloyd, who was the pick of the hard boys, which wasn't a great, particularly high bar, but he did score some points. He did get into the top 10, so he gets himself a C for the weekend. Yeah, let's see. He reckons he'll be lasting the whole season. All bets are off for me.
Yeah, very much so. Boutel gets a C for this weekend. At points, we thought it was all going to turn out rosy and he was getting to get his first points of the season, but it didn't quite happen for him, just falling short of that. But there looked to be a little more pace from him this weekend.
Absolutely. De Leon, what do you make of a debut for him? Nearly had points in race 3, gutting that it's an error that... Sorry?
Very encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. It's disappointing for him that the reason he doesn't score points isn't down to him. It's down to a technicality of having a mechanic late on the grid. But yeah, he wasn't last, as predicted. He looked quick at times, and I think there is a talent in there. It's generally accepted he's going to be a quick driver. Yes, he makes a mistake in quality. He's a rookie. There's an element of that's always going to happen. So it's a C for absolutely. It's a C for De Leon, and I think he scores points before the season's out.
Yeah, so do I. Your wonder kid, Patterson, not quite a wonderful weekend this weekend, although he did score points in the final race. We're going to give him a C this time out. Unlucky not to do better, but we'll see how he progresses through the season. And finally, who we haven't added on to here yet, Michael Crease. I would
haven't,
say
have
he
we?
gets a C this weekend. Scored points in the final race,
Yep.
and was there and thereabouts. Didn't get caught up in anything, and of course, learning the car.
I'm inserting crease now, and we're saying a C, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
One thing we didn't actually mention in the pod, the review pod, is that Nick Hamilton, of course, wasn't here this weekend. He withdrew from the race on grounds that have not been made clear as of yet, possibly
Rumours
financial.
are financial. Yes.
Yeah, and if there's a round he misses, it tends to be Knock Hill. I've got a feeling we might be seeing no Nick Hamilton at Knock Hill, but we will see. I hope that I'm wrong, but that tends to be the round he misses if there's problems with the budget.
Yeah, very much so. Getting on then finally to the PMR boys. Doble takes home a B this weekend, winning the Jack Sears in a car that I didn't think would go particularly well this weekend at Croft. But all credit to him. He's consistent, he finishes races, and he's creeping up into the points more often than not.
Absolutely. Watson gets a C. Not looking as good as the season's going on as Doble, although different strokes for different folks and all that kind of stuff. He's still doing pretty well in his debut season, to be fair to him, but being outshone a little bit by Doble, so it's a C at the moment. Although Watson has made really good progress in the Jack Sears and now
Yeah.
sits second, so he's certainly in the fight for the Jack Sears and doing really well. And if you were to tell me that both the PMR boys would have been top of that Jack Sears at this point in the season, I wouldn't have agreed. Put it that way.
No, certainly not. And then finally, to finish off, Aaron Taylor Smith takes home a C this weekend. Obviously, at fault for putting Moffat off, but apart from that, had some decent finishes in and around 10th position and taking home some decent points.
Yeah, he's getting involved in a few too many incidents for me at the minute. Not necessarily all his fault, but yeah, he does seem to be involved in something every weekend, and that was highlighted by the fact that one of his penalties he got pushed back even further because he'd already reached the strike limit for the year. So, but yeah,
Yep,
it's going well for Taylor Smith and the PMR overall. Right, looking at our predictions then. You
we
went
have to.
for Well, for me, we do because coming into this weekend,
I
you
don't
led
think
four.
it's necessary.
Coming into this weekend, you led 14-13, but it's all changed at the top. So, first of all, we both predicted that the pole would be either Ingram or Hill, and we were wrong because it's always Napa. I don't know
Yep,
why we think of anything else. It's
no,
always Napa forevermore. If they get all 10 for the season, I don't think that's been done before. I don't
I
think
doubt it.
I don't think one team has had a car on every podium of the year either, but we'll have to check that out nearer the time at the end of the season. So no points for us there. In terms of winners, I did get a point, which is excellent because I went for Colin Turkington, who won race number 3. Ingram and Collard did not come up trumps for me though, so only the 1 point for myself.
But I did get a point because
You
you
did?
always have to back Sutton.
You
Apart
do,
from out Olsen where he didn't win.
and he won race 2, so well done to you.
Thank
We
you.
both got the Jack Sears wrong. I went for Pearson, thinking that this would be a Hyundai track, thinking back to the triumphs of Lloyd here last year, and it didn't go my way at all. Pearson had a particularly poor weekend. I don't think he scored well in Jack Sears at all.
No.
One to forget for me and for him.
Yeah, and I went for Osborne, and I was oh so close until he fell back in race 3. And I think only missed out on the Jack Sears win this weekend by 1 point to Mikey Doble.
Now, going on to the generals, there is a momentous thing to tell the listeners
There
and
we
the
go.
watchers. It is momentous, Sam. I know you don't like it because it's not you, but I think for the first time ever, we have got a full bingo card. All 4 were right by me. So we'll come back to my 4 in a minute because I want to get the maximum milkage out of that possible.
You want to take the full glory for it, yeah.
I want you to sing me a song as I bask in my
I'm not singing. No, none of our
victories.
listeners want to hear that.
You make a fair point. Take us through your terrible predictions there first.
So
and then we'll come to
I
my
will
brilliance.
possibly start with the worst one. Obviously, I completely jinxed the fact that Cook has been finishing P7 for most of the season, and he had a really good weekend and took a podium and a 4th and a 5th along the way. So that didn't work out for me. And then Hill, silly mistakes that I was gutted about. Because if he'd have finished where he'd have finished, he'd been on pole position for race 3, and he could have taken home the win, and he'd had outscored Turkington quite easily. but he didn't, unfortunately.
Can I make you even more annoyed?
Go
Cook
on.
has only had 3/7 all season.
Oh, okay.
Do your research before you make silly predictions.
Yeah, I do them quite off the cuff sometimes, but maybe I have to do some more research now. I've fallen behind. But Lloyd did score a top 10. I thought he was going to do it in race one until he got shuffled back a few places, but he did manage to do it in race two, and I was quite pleased by that.
You were. And your final prediction? Or was that it?
Yeah, I went a little too optimistic on the amount of cars running through the gravel. I thought as well when we started watching the coverage that they'd move that gravel a little bit closer to monitor track limits, and then only so like just over half of my expected number went through.
Yeah, well, the problem for you is that wasn't a judged corner on the basis that the gravel did the judging for them. So there wasn't.
I thought being first corner exit, you're going to have people running wide, people battling into there, and we saw that at the start on a few occasions. It just didn't happen as much as I thought it would. And if it was wet, it would have happened a lot more, I think. But it wasn't.
Sorry, Roy Butcher, but shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Come on then, take the glory.
Right. Have you got the trumpets playing in the background? I went for Crease would score points, and he waited to race 3 to make me sweat on that one, but he did score points.
Yeah.
But he did score points on his return. I said that the Lion wouldn't finish last in any of the races, and he didn't. Technically speaking, race 1, he is saved by a technicality, I accept, on the fact that there were cars that were still classified despite being an lap or two down. But race 2 and 3, he didn't finish last on merit. And actually, as I said, in race 3, he had a drive-through penalty, got his head down, overtook, I think, 2 cars in the end, actually, including Nick Halstead.
I think Pearson had an issue towards the end and was falling back, but on Halstead, it was just on pure pace.
So he didn't finish last. So that's great knowledge, great wheel knowledge by me. One motorsport would outscore Toyota. Yes, that happened comprehensively. And finally, I got the number dead on for going through the gravel trap, which means double points because I said it'd be 7. And by our calculations, based on TV replays, I think that it might have actually been
TV replays.
Yeah, and actually, in your defence, I think it might have been slightly higher. Not high enough for you to win the point, but I do think it might have been slightly higher than 7. But we can only count what we can see, and we both agree that on our basis, on our mathematics and our watching, it was 7.
Yeah, I think if you properly wanted to analyse, there might have been one more. But as you say, it wasn't obvious on any replays or on the live coverage itself, but we did get to 7.
Yeah, I think that we got to at least 8 personally, but we can only go.
I mean, if we want to go with that, I'll be absolutely happy with it.
No, because we have to see it go through the gravel, and we didn't. So what that does to the scores, listeners and viewers, as you can probably tell by my smug face, I have now taken a lead in this championship. I think for the first time this season.
Do you realise that all the people on audio can hear your smugness?
They can indeed. I mean, I've only led the championship twice this season. You have been beating me throughout the most. However, this is now the biggest gap of the season. So you're now on 16 points, and I'm now on 19 points.
So yeah.
Biggest
I need to do some work before Knock Hill.
Yes. So I think actually you're going to struggle because I think our predictions for Knock Hill are going to be quite similar.
Possibly. Quite possibly. But yeah, we'll see how that goes.
That's the grades. That's the predictions. Is there anything else you'd like to say vis-a-vis Croft and the weekend, or touring cars generally? We've got a few minutes left. Is there anything you want to say in Sam's corner?
I'm really looking forward to going to Knock Hill for the first time, I must say. It's going to be a long journey up. Going to enjoy the little place that we're staying in. And the company, yes. Obviously, you'll probably fall asleep on the way up there while I'm driving. Although you have mentioned today that you're bringing a brand new crossword book, which should keep the entertainment values high.
Absolutely. And there's a likelihood I will have to do or be asked to do some of the driving, as it's a long stint, but we'll see how we go. Yeah, I too am looking forward to Knock Hill. It's going to be a good weekend, which will be, great.
Yeah, very much so. We'll try and document as much of it as we can, and hopefully you'll be able to come along for the ride when we upload the videos in the week or two following. But yeah, if you've enjoyed today's podcast, please do leave us a like, subscribe, get that notification bell on YouTube, and please do leave us a comment. Who do you think was the driver of the weekend? Where are your grades sitting, and have you got any predictions going forward towards Knock Hill? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Absolutely. And if I could just close off by saying, some people say to me, how can I help the podcast? Well, the best way to help the podcast is to do exactly as Sam just said. Like, subscribe, 5-star review, comment on YouTube, share us somewhere. Those stuff really help, particularly on YouTube. Get subscribed, get the bell on because it helps the algorithm. And to say, leave us a 5-star review. We'll take a 4. We'll take a 4 if that's what it needs. We prefer a 5, but we'll take a 4. We're realistic.
I can understand if it would be a 4 this week.
We're realistic, as my face has gone really shiny, as it's got darker in here. I like David Bowie.
Anyway, we'll be back again once more with a preview for Knock Hill, and then the review for Knock Hill will be a little delayed because of our tired and weary eyes travelling all that way back down. But we'll speak to you again soon.
Is there only one left thing to do? I'll try that again. Is there one thing left to do? Bye! Bye.